We know that one of the most valuable attributes an adult can have is persistence. And the DePaul University psychologist Dr. Glenn D. Jensen has found that the best way to develop persistence in a child is to permit him to fail regularly. When we see a young child trying to do something and finding it difficult, and realizing how simply we can help him finish what he's trying to do, we have an almost overwhelming impulse to give him a hand. If we do this too often, it can be a mistake. In the tests conducted by Dr. Jensen, youngsters aged 3 to 9 years were tested in a room equipped with levers and knobs. They learn after a few minutes that twisting one of them will produce marbles, which will be exchanged for pennies. Now, some of the children are purposely spoiled, get marbles every time they twist the knobs. Others get marbles only after a number of knob twists. Then Jensen cuts off the marbles entirely and begins measuring the children's persistence. Now, white rats also are used in the experiments. The psychologist divides the white rats into 2 groups, those to be spoiled with kindness and those to be disappointed. Now, those to be spoiled are placed in a small cell with a single bar, which, when pressed, produces a tiny pellet of food. The second group finds it harder to come by. The first time they press the bar, it produces, but the next pellet comes only after 5 presses. Then this is raised by geometric progression to 10, 20, 40, 80, and 160. The graphs show that the spoiled rats lose heart quickly when they discover that they will not get food each time. But the frequently disappointed rats keep at it. It seems that the reaction of the children is just about the same as that of the rats, which all goes to prove what you probably knew already, that a life full of rewards is less a spur to sticking with the job than if it's interlaced with disappointment. When asked if young humans act like laboratory animals in these tests, the university said the answer seems to be yes. So it would appear then that the wise mother or father is not the one who says, "Here, let me help you with that," but instead understands the importance of failure. Failure keeps us trying. Easy success tends to cause us to give up the first time that we're faced with a job that takes persistence. Now, this is probably why the most popular sports and games are those most difficult to master. This must be why millions of men go back to golf each year, knowing that it's one of the most difficult games to get good at. The same would apply to the universal popularity of tennis, bridge, marriage, politics, and statesmanship. But the purpose in my mentioning these tests with youngsters and white rats, if you can forget the invidious comparison, is that we need to fail if we're to develop persistence. And maybe we shouldn't be so quick to give the kids a hand when they find themselves stumped on a problem. A bright, personable young man had been offered the opportunity to work for a highly successful, well-established manufacturing company. He saw the personnel director, talked with other officers of the company, and finally requested an interview with the company's president and chairman of the board. And this is how the president himself tells the story of what happened. The young man said he was considering an offer to join our company. He wanted to be certain he was making the right lifetime choice, and he felt he had a right to research this question right up to the chairman of the board. He was intelligent, ambitious, and appeared to have good potential for growth. In fact, the company president went on to say, "I caught myself speculating as to whether or not he might run the company in 20 years. However, his line of questioning was disappointing. It suggested that his goal was personal security and not opportunity. He was interested not in our problems and probable growth, but in our rate of employee turnover, in our fringe benefits, and in our pension plan, to a point where it became apparent to me that he wanted to spend his working days in an atmosphere of maximum personal security, and not in a dynamic environment of exploiting our opportunities." I felt I had an obligation to place this matter in focus, and he appeared shocked when I told him that I was sure he could not find security in our company, because I'd been looking for it for some time and couldn't find it myself. I told him that it was frequently necessary for us to make major strategic decisions with respect to product, key personnel, pricing, expansion, and the like, and that despite our excellent staff, our sound product position, and our financial strength, a major error could relegate all of our personal security programs to the ash can. I reminded him, for example, that products can be obsoleted by research and invention, conducted in some remote basement in the world, which would have the effect of rendering unnecessary our plans, facilities, personnel, even management. I also reminded him that this not only could happen, but has happened many times. I told him that there was no absolute security in our company or any other company, except that which our personnel collectively earn from day to day and from year to year, and that furthermore there was no absolute security for him in our company unless he remained competitive in his work until the day of his retirement. And finally, I suggested that in planning his life work, that he place major emphasis on exploiting opportunities for growth with their attendant successes and failures, rather than on personal security in and of itself. Well, unfortunately, he behaved like the young man reported in the Gospel who asked the Lord what he might do to gain eternal life. When he heard the answer, and considering it too hard, he silently went away. Morbid emphasis on personal security generates a certain myopia, a dedication to the status quo, resistance to change, and the rejection of opportunities for personal growth with their associated risks and rewards because there might be a finite chance to fail. And he closed with this thought: I've learned over the years that preoccupation with security breeds insecurity, and that security, like happiness, most often eludes those who pursue it the most. Paradoxically, security most often comes to him who in life assumes the risks of insecurity. Let me draw you a little picture. A housewife sits at her kitchen table. The kids are in school. The husband's at work. Outside it's raining. She sips her tepid coffee and turns the pages of a magazine. In the magazine there's a picture of a striking woman sitting by the pool of her palatial home. The sun is shining. There are flowers and carefully trimmed hedges, and a child is swimming in the pool. Suddenly the housewife stares at her rain-spattered kitchen window and thinks, if I had what she's got, I'd be happy. Happiness. The state of being happy is one of the world's most interesting subjects. It's so interesting because the state of happiness has nothing whatever to do with environment. A world-famous entertainer steps out of his private jet at the Los Angeles airport and is, at that moment, less happy than the man who will now refuel the airplane. Another time, the entertainer will be happier. But the rich woman in the magazine sitting by her pool in the lovely setting is not by any means happier than the woman in the kitchen with the rain coming down outside. Happiness is never a respecter of persons, high or low, queen or charwoman, rich or poor, white, black, or anywhere in between. A friend of mine who's worth several $1 million and who was one of the happiest people I ever knew has changed completely and is now one of the world's unhappiest people. Not because he's a millionaire, but because all the fun's gone out of his life. Happiness is a byproduct of direction. That is, happiness is a condition that depends upon the direction in which we're moving. My friend had been a happy man most of the time for many years because he had been actively working toward a goal he wanted very much to achieve. Well, he's achieved his goal now, with nowhere else to go, which is his own fault, and he's miserable. The world-famous entertainer leaving his private jet is bored and unhappy. He's heading home to a lonely house. The young man servicing the jet plane has a date that night with a girl he's in love with. He's in a state of euphoria. The woman sitting by the pool with a beautiful home may well be quite happy at the time the picture's taken. She's delighted that she and her friends will soon see her and her home in a national publication, while our housewife, her family scattered to work and school, faces the prospect of a lonely day of laundry, cleaning, and cooking, and besides, it's raining outside. If her husband calls and tells her they're going out to dinner with friends that night, she'll be transformed. Or if she learns that good friends or her family are coming to visit that evening or weekend, the work will fly by as she thinks about and plans for the visit. We're happy when we're moving towards something we want to happen, and that's all there is to it. Nothing else makes much difference. The person or family that's working toward goals, priorities that are not too distant to be exciting, will tend to be happier than the person or family without them. Happiness. It's a very interesting thing. Thank you.